Good evening. I'm Ken Nestle. I'm the volunteer from LaVorp, the Lancaster Area Victim Offender Program that had called you the other day. I think I spoke to you, Jamie, and we had set up our meeting, so I really appreciate. Here's a card that tells who I am and gives an address, phone number of our organization. I think your probation officer probably also talked to you a little bit about our program, so I don't want to go into a lot of detail here, but I do want to tell you a little bit about what LaVorp is all about and what this process that we're talking about would be. But let me see, before we get started, I know you're Jamie and we've talked. These are your parents, I take it? Your name?
Mary.
You're Mary, and Terry's okay if we call you Mary and Terry in our conversation here? Okay, very well. As I said, I'm a volunteer with LaVorp. I'm here to sort of explain this process to you and decide what we would like to do as far as the things that I'm going to be telling you about. Before I start, I did want to say a little bit about a term that we use. It's called restorative justice. It's a little different view on justice than what we get through the court system. In the court system, the traditional justice system primarily talks about breaking the law and consequences for breaking the law. I'm sure you've had some consequences from your probation officer and you know what I'm talking about. In the restorative justice concept, we talk more about the harm that comes from the incident that happened. Not so concerned about which law was broken, but the harm that came to another individual. And we'd like to, that's what we're going to be focusing on more in our discussion here. And in our meeting today, let me just sort of tell you sort of what our process will be. I want to talk a little bit about confidentiality. I want to talk about my role as a facilitator. We're going to talk about what happened, have you share a little bit about what happened and the facts and feelings that were part of that incident. Certainly going to invite you as parents to say whatever you'd like to say as well. And then I'll explain a little bit what happens at a joint meeting if we would have one. That's a meeting with the other party. That's something we'll talk more about, and I'll explain sort of how that meeting would go if we decide to go that direction. Also going to talk about addressing the harm and that did come and what there might be, what some of the things might be that need to be done to take care of that harm, and the benefits of having a joint meeting. So that's sort of what I want to talk about in this session here, and at any time you're free to interrupt me or ask questions. Do you have any questions right now about what I've said so far?
No.
You okay with that? Well, in terms of confidentiality, I do want you to know, I already said that I'm a community volunteer, and one of the things that we're very committed to is confidentiality. You know, we don't share information about this with any of our friends or neighbors or anything like that. I do need to give a brief report back to LaVorp, my office, and a brief report of the outcome will go to your probation officer. But other than that, we don't share anything with anybody else. I just want to assure you of that. And there would be a couple of exceptions to that, which I want to just tell you, that if in the course of our meeting there would be a threat to cause harm or actual harm came to a person or property, I might be called upon to report that. Or if there is any false information given when writing an agreement, or if there would be any disclosure of child abuse. Those could be reasons that we would have to report, but other than that, it's completely confidential. Okay, any questions about that at this point? You're comfortable with that?
I'm very relieved to hear this is a confidential process.
My role as a facilitator, as I said, I'm a volunteer, and I'm not here to make any decisions for you. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to facilitate a process. That's really what it is, and I'll explain what that process is as we go along. So I just want you to know that you know I'm not coming with another set of requirements or anything that you're going to have to do, but I'm going to explain some options that you will have that I'm going to encourage you to consider. I'd like to start then, Jamie, with having you say a little bit about what happened in this incident. I've got a referral here which came from your probation officer, just as a couple sentences. I know something about a bag at school and school bag, but I really don't know much. Could you just sort of tell us what was going on that day and what happened?
Well, I've been having a really bad day, and I saw a backpack just kind of lying in the hallway, and I didn't really think about it. I just grabbed it, and I didn't even look who it belonged to. Wasn't thinking. I just picked it up, and after school I opened it up, and there was money in it. So I went and got some CDs I'd been wanting, and then I saw that there was a credit card in there, and there was this pair of jeans I really wanted, and so I tried to buy them with the credit card, but when the clerk asked me for the name on the card, I didn't know it. So I got arrested, and I was at the police station for a really long time, and I've been kind of paying for it ever since. I got grounded for a long time and got a probation officer, and I've been doing community service, and I feel really bad about what happened. I just want to put it behind me. I just want to be done with it. But I really wasn't thinking and made a bad choice.
Yeah, well, thanks for saying that much. I've learned more than I knew before, and I'm sure it's not fun, sort of looking back to that time. But hopefully, in our discussing this together, it will help you to do what you just said, that you want to put it behind you, and that is actually one of the things that many people find this process to be very helpful, to really do sort of put it behind you, and then we'll talk more about that later. Are you able to think back, sort of what you were thinking or feeling when you saw the backpack there? Did you know whose it was when you first?
No,
you didn't know whose it was.
I didn't look whose it was. It didn't have a name on it.
So can you remember at all what you may have been feeling right at that point in time when you decided to take it?
No, I'd just been having a really bad day, and I was in a fight with some of my friends, and just really frustrated, and I was running late for class. I was walking down the hallway, and there was a backpack just sitting there alone in the hallway, and I wasn't really thinking about the backpack. I just grabbed it on my way to class, and after school I opened it up and found the money, but I wasn't, thinking, oh, I'm going to steal a backpack. It was just there, and I grabbed it.
And I think one of the questions, so you did not know whose backpack it
No.
was then. Have you found out now whose it is?
I think it belonged to this kid named Marty. I don't really know them, but
Okay. So have you had any interaction with him directly since that time?
no, every time running into the school, they just kind of turn around and walk the other way. So I guess they know it was me, but I don't really know them. I wasn't out to get them or anything. I didn't know whose backpack it was.
But it does feel a little uncomfortable when you see him in school to sort of know, like you say, sort of walk away from it. Yeah. So what was it like when you said, so do I understand that you're saying you actually went to the store and were using the credit card, and that's when it was discovered and the clerk got suspicious and called. It must have been a pretty scary moment for you.
Yeah, it was. They called the mall security, and I had to wait there until the cops came, and then I had to go down to the police station, and I was there for a really long time, and it's really scary. So.
And how did your parents find out about it?
The police called them.
Okay.
We got a call.
And we were ticked.
I just couldn't believe it. I was just shocked. I have not raised my children this way. I have raised them with very good morals, with very good, a sense of right and wrong. And when I heard that Jamie had been arrested, I didn't believe it at first. And then after the officer convinced me it was true, I was in shock.
Yeah, she's always made good choices. She's a role model for her siblings, and they look up to her, and yeah, we just were beside ourselves at first. And we actually made her stay at the police station a little longer than she would have had to.
Decided we were a little bit busy and couldn't get down there right away.
She could think about it for a while. Whether that was a good decision or not, I don't know, but.
So how's it been since this incident? I think Megan mentioned that Jamie, I was thinking of her daughter Megan. Jamie mentioned that she's been grounded.
Yeah, we
And
made
has
sure
she-
she was going to hang around the house for a
Okay,
while.
okay.
Keep an eye on her. This demanded some kind of punishment. We couldn't just let it go.
And I guess a question I was thinking, she mentioned she didn't really know, I believe you said his name was Marty. Do you know the parent? Are you familiar with, acquainted with the family at all? Do you know them?
We don't know.
Okay.
But I expect we'll run into them at some school function or.
I think for us now, it's a sense of shame, you know? I mean, maybe we will run into them, and what are we gonna say? How are we going to be able to look them in the eye and say, wow, you know, welcome to our community, or welcome to our church. I'm a pastor, and how is this going to affect? So I have, you know, this sense of anger has moved now into a sense of shame, and that's what I'm working with right now.
Well, and I think it is, hopefully Jamie will understand this, that the actions, this thing that she did, not only affected the person whose bag was taken, but it's also affected your parents.
Yeah, we've had some discussions about that, haven't we?
Yeah, at the dinner table, all the time.
You know, one of the things that then this sort of is perhaps a helpful sort of next step to what I was going to talk about next is, we have found in many situations, like similar to this, that if all the parties involved can actually get together, it can really, really help deal with a number of the things we're talking about. And that would be the next step that we do want you to consider. And maybe if there's more you want to say before, but I could tell you a little bit what that meeting would look like. Would that be helpful to know that? Or do you have other questions?
How many people need to know about it?
Yeah, I know. Will this be in a public place? Will it be in our home, or where will this be?
Well, usually we will have a neutral location. We use community churches a lot, or public library, community hall. We'll find a neutral place that's convenient. But certainly, as I mentioned earlier, the confidentiality part, we would make sure that it's a place that you're comfortable with. And so you'll have a chance to agree that this is an okay place for you. So we would certainly do that. And the only people involved, and I can't tell you for sure, I haven't met with the other party yet, but certainly the person whose bag was taken and parents would be invited. I would let you know ahead of time who would be coming on that from their side. Basically, when we run a meeting like this, can I tell you a little bit about what the meeting would look like? I will want to meet with them first, which I haven't done, and verify that they're in agreement to this, that this would be helpful to them. But what I'd like to be able to tell them is that I've met with you, and I've certainly have sensed from you, Jamie, a sense that you know it was wrong and you're sorry, and I think I've sensed a desire to find a way to make it right. Now, and so I can communicate that you're willing to do that and explain again to the process what it would mean to them. And if they agree to it, then I'll come back to you and I'll let you know. The meeting would sort of go like this. We would get together, the three of you probably, unless there's anybody else or your family that you would want to have there, and the other party and parents. I don't know exactly where we'll meet, but oftentimes it's we meet in a circle or around a table. I would be there to facilitate the process. We would have brief introductions together so we all knew who each other is. I'd go through a little introductory opening, a little bit like I did here this evening. And then probably what we would do is have you, Jamie, speak first and tell a little bit about what happened. Sometimes even parents or the other parties don't quite know what was going on in your mind. And in fact, that's oftentimes one of the reasons why they like to get some of their questions answered. So I'll have you share a little bit about what happened. And the way we usually do this is I have you share about what happened and how you were feeling about it. And then I'll have the other person repeat back what they heard you say. Because one of the things that we're going to emphasize in that meeting is that we want to listen to each other, okay? So we do that and give them a chance to ask you questions. We'll give them a chance to ask you questions also, or also give you a chance to participate in the conversation after Jamie has done that. And then once we've heard from you, we're going to also then ask Marty and to share how this affected him. And what it meant for him, how he was feeling about it, the harm that he experienced, and invite their parents to share. And then I'm going to also ask you to sort of summarize what you heard him say. So that's sort of the main part of what of the meeting in terms of what happened. And then we'll also talk about, have him explain what the harm was. I think we didn't get to talk about this yet. We want to talk about it. I think there were some money taken, you mentioned. I don't know myself, we want to confirm the exact, how much have you been told?
There's like $150 in the backpack.
$150, okay.
I
then.
used it to buy some CDs, but obviously my parents made me return them. So
Okay.
I have that money to get back.
Okay,
and
okay.
I wanna, I've been saving up my babysitting money and chore money to replace the backpack, so.
Okay, so the backpack and some stuff that was in it, do you know what the total cost of that is? Have you been told that? I mean, we'll confirm that with them and talk about it, and we may even have to check with your probation office to see what the court is saying, but I'm not sure what that amount is. I was thinking it was $300 or $400 total. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think the court told us 300.
Okay.
And, but then we have court fees. Is that part of this agreement?
That would not be a part of it. What we'll be concerned about here is the harm that came to the other person and their family, and their out-of-pocket expenses. And so that's what we want you to take serious the responsibility to meet that need. If the court has costs, and I'm not even sure what they are, that's between you, the probation officer will explain that, and that would be paid separately. That would not be a part of any agreement that we put together.
Okay. Well, I have another question about replacing the backpack. I don't know what kind of backpack it was and what the cost is, but how do I know they're not gonna say, oh, this is a chance to get a really good high-end backpack, and then say we have to pay for that? I mean, how do you determine the monetary portion of that? It's not that I don't want them to get what they deserve, but, I don't know these people, I don't know what their thoughts are, and,
Take advantage of this
Well,
situation?
what I will ask them to define, as best as they can, what they figure their losses to be. And I'll share that with you. I don't know either what kind of a backpack it was, and I'm not prepared to say that backpack was worth so many dollars, but we'll ask them to sort of suggest what they think it costs. I'll come back to you and share this is what they're expecting. And what we usually find is people are very reasonable. Certainly our concern too is that no one tries to take advantage of anybody, and we'll keep that an open discussion. I don't know if they've already bought another backpack, then I'll ask them if possible to show the receipts for that. If they haven't bought it, I mean, you probably know as well as better than I do what a backpack costs. So we'll arrive at that. And obviously you've already understood the amount of cash. I mean, cash is always a little difficult, but I think the amount of cash you talked about is the same as it was written here. So I think that's the cash that they're looking for.
And will we have to pay that then?
Mhm.
I mean, will Jamie have to pay that?
That'll
Yeah,
be,
we're not
We're going to
paying it.
make that come out of her hide, not ours.
well, that discussion will also be something that will take place together. The first thing will be to agree on the total amount that you are comfortable is the right amount, and they say if we would get this amount in restitution, we'll accept that. And then whatever payment schedule would be possible. Certainly, if you have some money already saved up, and I think you said you did save some of that, to bring some of that along to the meeting would be a nice gesture that you seriously intend to do what you're promising to do. If you don't have it all, I will ask them also to be thinking about what they need. Now, if they're going to be saying they absolutely have to have all the money immediately, I'll let you know that. And then you'll have to decide how you can do that. If she doesn't have enough, if you decide you loan it to her, I certainly agree with the idea that Jamie should be responsible to pay it back. Sometimes we do find that parents do need to step in and help because we are concerned about meeting the harm of the other person. And so if Jamie doesn't have enough money now and you can help her out, that at least meets the requirement for repairing the harm that came. But between you and I'll say it out loud, I certainly encourage you to require her to pay you back if you would end up helping her out. But that's between you, really. It's between you.
Yeah, maybe with interest.
Okay. So what we will actually do is, after we've discussed this and have agreed together that this is the amount, we'll actually work out a meeting agreement right there. We have a form that we use, has your names on it, it talks about that we've met. Sure, you can look at that. And we'll actually fill out the relevant parts of that. There's place for the monetary amount, and in case, occasionally we have persons who say, you know, I don't really want the money, but I want you to do some work at my house, or I want you to do community service work instead of the money. I don't know if that's something they would have interest in, but if so, it can be talked about. And if you agree to do that, we'll put that down. And what we do know is the court, your probation officer, whatever we agree here in this meeting that we're talking about having, whatever we agree in terms of restitution, the court will accept that. So even if
So
it's
the court's not gonna come back and demand then this monetary
No.
amount they're telling us.
I mean, if there's $300 that the court says, and they agree to take $100 in cash and $200 in some sort of community service worth, and we write that up, that will be accepted by the court. Yeah. So this would be, and then this is a copy of this, would go to your probation officer. The LaVorp office is responsible to help coordinate this. You know, we'll follow up with you if it's not all paid immediately. They send out payment coupons and schedule reminders about when it's due, and then pass the money on, and then reports back to your probation officer when it's all done. That's sort of the process that we would go through. I'd like to, you know, just go back to a couple things that I heard you say at the very beginning, that this has been hard for you, and I can understand that for all of you. You'd like to put it in the past, and while it's not necessarily an easy step to sit in front of the person you've harmed, I've seen it happen many times, and I'm encouraged by what I you know, how you're working with this. I think it could be a very, very helpful step to do exactly what you were saying, to help you put it behind you, and relieve some of those fears that both you have and you might have, because as you meet together and there's a human face put to this, and you get to talk about it together, my expectation would be is that you'd come away feeling a whole lot better about it, and being prepared then to put it behind you. You know, some of the other benefits of our program, I mean, we're very flexible. We make it fit your schedule. We don't require you to go at, you know, during the daytime and take off work to have a meeting. We'll make it at a time that fits everybody's schedule. And
Is there a deadline that we have to have this meeting by?
well, we'd like to get it as soon as possible so that, you know, we can report back to Jamie's probation officer that this has been taken care of, because, you know, again, I haven't talked to your probation officer about this, but usually they're not gonna let you off probation until this is taken care of. So the sooner we can do it. So I'd say we'd like to have this meeting within the next couple of weeks, but I'll need to schedule my other meeting, but hopefully within the month or less that we can have this meeting. That would be my expectation.
And is there, if we don't have the money and there's some kind of time schedule, you know, does that have to be within a certain time frame also? Or?
Well, probably.
Because Jamie's 15 and
yeah.
doesn't really have a job, so she's not gonna earn a lot of money.
Have you been told, Jamie, sort of how long your probation's gonna go?
I'm on 6 months of probation. I'm already like a month and a half in, so.
Okay. So generally our goal is to have a payment schedule, if we accept it, that ends before your normal probation end date. Because if it doesn't, then you're faced with the possibility of being, your probation being extended, or depending on how your probation officer views it, that sometimes they even will take you back to court and you get additional court costs and so on as a part of that. So I think you need to be thinking of some payment schedule from your side that would get it done before that 6 months is ended. Now, what we don't know is sort of how patient the other party will be and whether they'll be happy with that. But what I'll try to get a sense of that when I meet with them, and if they're going to be really, really asking for payment immediately or very, I'll try and give you some some direction on that, so you can come prepared to that meeting with some options that you could offer them. I think what's important is that they sense that you indeed do intend to meet this obligation in a reasonable kind of fashion, and usually we find people are very willing to work with you.
She'll meet it. We'll make sure of that.
So, I was saying, the meeting, it does give you an option, and gives you the opportunity to put it behind you, to allay some of the fears that you may have had. I'm not saying that you have to become good friends with him, but it makes it more comfortable for you if you do meet him in the school, or if you would meet the parents at the store somewhere. Gives us the option to get the restitution issues, the financial harm taken care of in a way that all parties agree to, which is also important. And I do know that your probation officer will be pleased if you can come up with an agreement like this, even though it is voluntary. I don't know if I actually mentioned that to you. This is not a requirement that you absolutely have to do. Your probation officer recommended to you, but we only want you to do it if you feel like it's the right thing to do and want to go forward. So I guess I'm sort of at that point in wanting to ask you whether you want to go forward
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
this.
I think it would be good
I
to
think so.
face him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'd like to just try to make it right and move on and put it behind me. So.
Mhm. I appreciate that, and I have a lot of confidence that you'll find this to be a good process for you. I think that about takes care of what we need to discuss here, but unless you have any other questions before we go.
But you'll be back in touch with us, or do we need to contact you?
I'll be in touch with you. I mean, certainly if you don't hear within 2 weeks or so, and you want to call the LaVorp, or actually, I can give you I'll give you my home number. Why don't you, here, I'll just mark it on the back here. That's the office number's on the front, but as I said, I'm a volunteer and I'm not in the office, so you can feel free to call me at that number if you don't hear within a reasonable, but I will be back in touch with you.
Okay.
Sometimes scheduling is an issue, and if the other people would be away or on vacation or something, and I can't get in touch, and it would get delayed because of that. But I'll try to keep you informed, but if you haven't heard, feel free to give me a call, okay?
Well, we already know Wednesday nights wouldn't work.
No, that's not gonna work. Wednesday and, my Saturday afternoons are pretty full usually.
Actually,
And,
that's.
of course, Sunday doesn't work for us.
Yeah, I appreciate your, because, I mean, maybe, so Wednesday nights are not good,
Yeah, we have church.
and Saturday afternoons are not good.
Right.
Now, you get off from school, what time are you home from school usually?
Usually home by 4 at the latest.
Sometimes we're able to schedule meetings right in that time, between school, instead of taking up an evening, like at 4 or 4:30, and, these meetings typically go not more than an hour, sometimes less, 30 minutes to an hour.
Okay.
So would a 4 to 5 or 4:30 to 5:30
I can make
work for
that
you?
work. How about you? Are you?
Or if you
I
prefer an
can
evening?
Yeah, I
If
can
you go in a
adjust
little
some
bit early,
things.
you could, maybe that day you could get off.
But if you know ahead of time, like an evening at 6:30 or 7, might
Mhm.
also work for you?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, well, knowing that Wednesday's not good, any other weekday, late afternoon or evening may work, or a Saturday morning.
Well, I'm grounded, so I'm free whenever.
Okay, all right, that's good. Well, we'll have to see what the options are, and again, when I call you back, then we'll talk about setting up a time like that.
Okay.
Good.
And I'm not sure where we'll meet, if you have any suggestions for me,
Well, not our church preferably,
yeah.
but the library has a space, I know.
Yeah.
And,
And I'll check, I think there's a church down on the corner, down the block down here that I saw, that I think we've used them before, but I'll check on that. And our office keeps a list of various places that we can use, so I'll be checking with that. So thank you very much, I appreciate your time, and I'll be back in touch.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, very good, thank you. Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, very good. All right.